The Galactic Council's seating arrangement had always been based on military strength. The mighty Krexthor Empire sat at the front, their 12-foot warriors radiating power. The humans? They chose seats in the back corner, quiet and unassuming. The galaxy's strongest species assumed this meant humans were weak. They couldn't have been more wrong. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council was a monument to cosmic power. Representatives from over 300 species gathered here to shape the fate of countless worlds. The seating arrangement told the story of galactic hierarchy. The strongest, most influential species sat closest to the central podium, while newer or weaker civilizations were relegated to the distant rows. For 50 years, humanity had occupied the same humble position, back row, corner seats, rarely speaking unless directly addressed. Ambassador Elena Vasquez and her small delegation seemed content with their insignificant role, taking notes quietly while the galaxy's titans made the important decisions. The front rows were dominated by legends. The Krexthor Empire, whose warriors could crush starship hulls with their bare hands. The crystalline hegemony, masters of energy manipulation who could nova stars at will. The void hunters, phase-shifting predators who existed partially outside normal reality. Each species had earned their position through demonstrations of overwhelming power. Humans, by comparison, seemed almost pathetically ordinary. Average height, no natural weapons, no psychic abilities, no exotic technologies that defied physics. They had joined the Council as a minor industrial partner, contributing manufacturing capacity and raw materials while the real powers handled galactic security. They're harmless, was the common opinion. Useful for menial tasks, but hardly a factor in serious galactic affairs. Today's emergency session would shatter that comfortable assumption forever. Supreme Chancellor Warlord Krexnull of the Krexthor Empire called the assembly to order, his massive frame casting shadows across the first several rows. Fellow representatives, we face an unprecedented crisis. The Devourers have returned. A collective shudder ran through the chamber. The Devourers were a nomadic machine intelligence that consumed entire star systems, converting matter into more copies of themselves. Ancient records spoke of their last appearance 3,000 years ago when they had consumed a quarter of the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing. Our combined fleets have engaged them 17 times, Krexnull continued, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. 17 defeats. Nothing we possess can penetrate their adaptive defenses. The reports that followed painted a picture of absolute desperation. Admiral Vexthera of the crystalline hegemony stood, her form flickering with agitated energy. My empire's quantum disruptors proved useless. The machines adapted to our weapons in real time, turning our own energy against us. The Void Hunter's phase technology was equally ineffective, growled Commander Thaxmore, his partially corporeal form wavering with distress. These Devourers exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Nowhere is safe from them. Species after species reported the same story. Weapons that could shatter planets became useless within minutes of deployment. Shields that had never been breached collapsed under adaptive assault. Military doctrines refined over millennia crumbled against an enemy that learned and evolved faster than any organic mind could comprehend. Perhaps, suggested Chancellor Zeknos of the Trade Federation, his voice shaking, it's time to consider evacuation protocols. Preserve what we can and retreat beyond the galactic rim. The suggestion sparked immediate outrage. The Krexthor slammed their fists against their desks hard enough to crack the reinforced metal. The crystalline beings flared with indignant energy. The Void Hunters hissed in frequencies that made reality itself shiver. We do not run. Krexnull roared. The Krexthor have never retreated from battle. Then we die with honor, Admiral Vexthera declared, her crystalline form blazing like a small star. Better extinction than cowardice. As the greatest military minds in the galaxy argued over how to face certain doom with dignity, a quiet voice spoke from the back corner. Excuse me. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the human section where Ambassador Elena Vasquez had raised her hand with the same polite gesture she might use to ask for the salt at dinner. Yes. Krexnull rumbled, clearly annoyed at the interruption. I couldn't help but notice, Elena said conversationally, that everyone's been approaching this from a military perspective. Has anyone considered that this might not be a military problem? The silence that followed was deafening. The Krexthor's 4 eyes narrowed dangerously. Of course it's a military problem, human. The Devourers are destroying everything in their path. Oh, I understand that, Elena replied calmly. But you've all been trying to fight them. Has anyone tried talking to them? The laughter that erupted from the front rows was like a physical force. The crystalline beings chimed with amusement. The void hunters made sounds like grinding metal. Even normally stoic species found the suggestion hilariously naive. Talk to them. Admiral Vexthura managed between crystalline chuckles. Human, they're machines. They don't communicate. They only consume. Actually, Elena said, producing a data pad with the casual air of someone presenting a grocery list, we've been in communication with them for the past 3 weeks. The laughter died instantly. That's impossible, Krexnull stated flatly. Is it? Elena touched her data pad and the chamber's main display activated. The Devourers aren't destroyers. They're gardeners. The display showed something that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew. The consumed star systems weren't empty voids. They were transformed. Where planets had once orbited, vast computational matrices now spun in perfect harmony. The matter hadn't been destroyed, it had been reorganized into something unrecognizable but undeniably alive. They're trying to upgrade the galaxy, Elena continued. Convert chaotic biological systems into efficient, harmonious digital ecosystems. They see biological life as primitive. They're trying to help. Help. The word came out of Krexnull's throat like a death rattle. They were quite polite about it once we figured out how to communicate, Elena said. Turns out they respond to basic mathematical concepts transmitted via gravitational waves. Simple stuff, really. We've been exchanging cultural information and philosophical perspectives. The greatest warriors in the galaxy sat frozen as a human explained how she'd made friends with their nightmare. The good news, Elena continued cheerfully, is that they're open to negotiation. They understand that some species might prefer biological existence, and they're willing to designate preservation zones for those who want to stay organic. And the bad news? Someone whispered. Well, they were getting a bit frustrated with all the shooting. They interpret weapons fire as a form of aggressive communication. Every time you attack them, you were essentially screaming insults at beings who just wanted to have a conversation. Elena stood up from her back row seat and walked toward the podium with the confident stride of someone who had just solved the galaxy's greatest crisis during her lunch break. They've agreed to stop the conversion process while we work out a comprehensive agreement, she announced. We're setting up a formal diplomatic exchange next week. I've already arranged for translation protocols and cultural sensitivity training. The chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. The galaxy's mightiest warriors had spent months trying to destroy an enemy they couldn't defeat, while the humans in the back row had simply introduced themselves and started a conversation. How? Admiral Vexthura finally managed. Elena's smile was gentle but carried undertones that made several species reconsider their assumptions about human harmlessness. We sit in the back because we listen. While you're all focused on projecting strength, we pay attention to what's actually happening. She gestured toward the frozen representatives. You see a threat to be destroyed. We see a problem to be solved. You bring weapons to conversations. We bring curiosity. Elena reached the podium and turned to face the assembly. For the first time in 50 years, a human stood at the center of galactic attention. The Devourers aren't our enemies, she said simply. They're just very different neighbors who want to improve the neighborhood. We can work with that. As the session ended and the galaxy's strongest species filed out in stunned silence, they finally understood why humans chose to sit in the back. It wasn't humility or weakness. It was strategy. From the back row, you could see everything. You could watch, learn, and understand before you acted. You could solve problems while others were still arguing about how to fight them. The seating arrangement stayed the same after that day. But everyone knew the real power in the galaxy came from the quiet voices in the back corner, the ones who chose to listen before they spoke. Sometimes the strongest position is the one that lets you see everyone else's weaknesses.